Marcus Garvey had a simple message for white America. If you don't want us here, just let us go back to Africa. In 1926, he was convicted of mail fraud in connection with his program focused on black economic independence. Now his 88-year-old son, activists, scholars, and others have launched a petition drive for a presidential pardon. And Taifa is the president of the Reparation Education Project, and she's also a frequent guest on the show. And Nkechi, I want to set the table for our audience. They see Marcus Garvey as the man in the admiral's hat, but they don't realize the threat that Marcus Garvey posed. He wanted to liberate, which was then America's black labor force. And I'll set it up this way. Imagine, if you will, if every worker at Amazon said they wanted to leave Tennessee and then go to Ghana. Marcus Garvey was a dangerous man.
Yes, he was a dangerous man to the white supremacist system. He was talking about black pride. He was talking about black unity. He was talking about the cultural expansion of Pan-Africanism. He is the person who coined Buy Black. He was talking about black economic independence. He had a communications arm, and he was galvanizing the black world to be unified, and he was a threat. He was talking about having pride in your culture. He's the one who came up with the colors of red, black, and green, which is used in flags across the world. He talked about black dolls so that little black girls could have pride in themselves. He had a huge convention in 1920 that brought together people such as Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh, India's Mahatma Gandhi, Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah. We're talking about the father of Malcolm X, the Reverend Earl Little. We're talking about Elijah Poole, who later became known as Elijah Muhammad. All of these people learned from Garvey, came to that convention in 1920, and went on to fashion struggles for victories across the world. He was a powerful man, and the United States determined that he must be stopped. And stop him, they did.
And that's what brings us to where we are. He was convicted for mail fraud. Explain the controversy, though, behind the conviction and deportation to his native Jamaica, because African Americans have a tendency to look at history and say, well, that must have been true. But one by one, we find out that wasn't necessarily the case.
Absolutely. Almost simultaneous with the rise of the Garvey movement was the rise of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which even at that early date was under the auspices of J. Edgar Hoover, who would much later go on to author the infamous COINTELPRO counterintelligence program, which sought to disrupt and destroy black movements. But that started with the Garvey movement. He was convicted upon no evidence whatsoever, did not have the benefit of counsel. And even later on, it was determined that the trial itself was an absolute farce, so much that President Calvin Coolidge during that time did in fact commute his sentence, but he was deported back to Jamaica. His name was never cleared. And that's what brings us down through to today with his living son, the Dr. Julius Garvey, calling for not just a pardon, but that's the term that we use today, but actual exoneration, because they say he did nothing wrong. He was, in fact, framed, and he was disgracefully banished from this country.
We should point out that the Garvey movement is still alive. Senghor Baye and others have been pushing now for a colony in Belize. But also, in a very real sense, we are right back to where we were during Garvey's times. 19 states now pushing to make sure that we can't vote. We are looking at the insurrection in which 6 of the groups that stormed the Capitol on January 6th were white supremacists. So that being said, do you think this time the movement to get his name cleared will have legs? I only have 30 seconds.
Oh, I sure hope so, particularly now where we have scores of black booksellers joining up with the Caribbean Political Action Committee, calling for a worldwide campaign to garner 100,000 signatures this month, this Black History Month, a petition to the White House, to the Biden White House, calling for a posthumous, meaning after death, pardon for the Honorable Marcus Garvey. This month, if 100,000 signatures are garnered, then the White House will be forced to make a reply.
Let me just put it this way. If Nkechi is calling on you, Mr. President, you might want to pick up the phone. Nkechi Taifa is the president of the Reparations Education Project. And Nkechi, as always, thanks for being with us.